Well, we started a taxation conversation 2 weeks ago. We would want to do a lot more insight into our current taxation issues, the subject of revenue generation, and whether we have really aligned the economy in such a way that it will synchronize with our pattern of expenditure. And we would also be looking at the subject of what our priorities should be, especially when we're facing issues of well, depreciation, but also issues of financing and trying to meet the various line items on our budget. Well, helping us continue the discussion is Dr. Atani Delali, and he is the Executive Director for Bastiat Ghana. And if you just want to reach them, right now as we're talking, you can just use your smartphones and log on to their webpage at www.bastiat.ghana.org, and Bastiat is spelled B-A-S-T-I-A-T, and bastiatghana.org, and you get to see what they do. It's a think tank and basically doing a lot more research on the economy, etc. Dr. Senzo, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
We'll have to start from where we left off.
Yeah.
Just the last week or two,
yeah,
we got the critical issue about the expenditures of the various public corporations.
Yeah.
Okay. Would want to take a look at that.
Okay.
But is it as a result of perhaps not trying to file their returns adequately, or perhaps not keeping their books well, or is it just that plainly they just don't manage the resources that they've budgeted for?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will also greet your listeners once again for coming to the office. I think with the public administrations and public institutions, one, we are having a challenge in terms of record keeping. All those factors you have raised are contributed factors that play for we not having our revenue being collected as expected. But I also raised a case whereby we are having a theory that indicates that the SMEs are the economic backbone, and they are the one numerous in our system. That means if we are to do our base work very well, they're supposed to be a contributing factor to our economy very well. Because if we are to look at all of them contributing their annual tax revenue to the state, we don't expect the state to be finding itself in wanting to the point that we are living always in that deficit. But the challenge here is the SME we quote in a better way, the micro small. Sometimes I don't want to use the small and medium scale because it has been narrowed to that point. I always want to add the micro because you see, we have more of the micro who, if we are to do what it takes to transition them to become small, it is also a part to widen the tax net. And then we have more of the small, that if we also help them to have that enabling environment to get to the medium, they are also they're going to increase the amount of revenue they also generate, in fact, also produce to the tax institutions. But these are the challenges we have. We are not able to assess the small to even be able to transition to the medium. And then many of the micro are not even willing, because many of the micro are in the section of the informal sector. Possible they are not recognized. They have not even registered themselves. And they don't have the willing, because they look at the situation they find their fellow in the small scale facing as presently. They even want their business to be in a hidden situation. And I think that if we are beginning to put our mathematics very well and bringing them to the limelight, and that is what Bastiat Ghana is playing its role in doing by empowering those people and getting government to also recognize that there are that large base of people that could be brought into the limelight to be able to benefit in the process of collecting widening a tax net. Okay.
Just by November, December, the finance minister will be going to Parliament.
Yes.
And the budget is always a critical issue. Why is it that for all the last couple of years, for all the targets we've had for revenues, we're not able to meet them internally? What could be some of the allusions to it?
One of the bigger challenge we have here, as I started from my earlier discussion with you, that we don't seem to have a well-grounded economy. When I say we don't have a well-grounded economy, that means we seem to define our economic environment on the basis of the classical studies. And the classical study is the one that moves on the line of the financial dynamics. That, to me, I would say that I call that particular perspective as a financial economics. We seems to highlight the financial economics than the behavioral economics. But in the study of economics, you realize that there are two components that move the market. We have the capital and we have the labor. We have gotten to a point whereby you see it for the capital, it is more of figures. So you can easily be able to calculate. And the work Bank of Ghana could do is always studying the behavior of the finance, that is more of the capital, because the amount we consume, the behavior of the people towards the capital is actually what it does. And that is what I'm saying. If we all come and sit here as part of classical economists and be able to only preach the aspect of the financial economics, we end up...
Which is what? Like the GDP and some of those variables?
That is the point.
The normal macro and...
Perfect. We will end up deriving the same result. And the main problem are still not solved.
Dr. Senzo, so for example, we just had the MPC, that's the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana meeting and announcing that, well, they may have set the rate at a certain percentage and maintaining and all. You're saying that at the macro level that's critical, but in revenue generation that is not important.
In revenue generating, it's important but play in a certain context. They are valuable to some extent.
Favors certain sections of the market.
Simple as that. It wouldn't cover all of them. We are having other components that we need to begin considering. And I believe from the Pan-Africanic ideas raised by Dr. Nkrumah, you realize that all those things were factored into it. I today have one opinion that what today we call Australian economics is just the same principle Nkrumah had projected from its area, making sure that his labor market is resourceful. This is the area we have ignored because it is not easily to be defined statistically. So we have ignored for some time, and that is also making the economy what I call not grounded. And any decisions you make, depending only on your financial economic parameters and ignoring the labor factor involved in it, you are likely to make promises that are going to fail. And that is what, to me, most of the time, it looks as if that we are blaming our president of making certain promises and it's not holding. I hold a different opinion to it because I hold to the fact that they are making the promises on the context of only the financial dynamics, leaving the labor market that are a strong component to...
So, for example, as we don't have relevant data of how many people perhaps are employed in a particular quarter of the year, or how many people are unemployed within a particular section of the year, how does that impact revenue generation? Be it as is made that we have formal and informal sectors, be it as is made that we have public sector workers and those who are in the private sector, be it as is made as we have workers in the informal sector who perhaps may be doing retail, maybe taxi drivers, or maybe other categories of workers who perhaps may also not be contributing directly to some sort of stated out revenue targets.
Perfectly, as defined, all those conditions you have stated, if we are beginning to address it correctly from the labor point, being resourceful. Now we have government having most of the labor being employed by him. And now the question we ask ourselves, are the employed labor resourceful now? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. Are they that resourceful? We are having a problem whereby the government institution, we call it to be unproductive, or possible they are not generating enough revenue expected. We are having another situation whereby we see the private sector, which in my previous discussion, making you to understand that even as of now, if government is to create an enabling environment for the small scale enterprise, I'm still going to let you understand that you will never get the anticipated revenue generation point.
Why?
The reason is simple, that we have a problem with our labor market. Our labor market are not resourceful. Why are they not resourceful? This is a nice question to ask me. Now, when you come into our SME sector, most of the businesses that are dominating there I classify them to be small business owners. They are not entrepreneurs. Now, the small business owner, how do we define a business to be a small business owner or an entrepreneur? I made you to understand that a small business owner is the type of business run under subsistence. That means the person is just running the business to survive, to complement monthly budget.
It means what, they don't have long-term or medium to long-term plans?
Exactly, and therefore don't have
and they don't recapitalize with profits.
Simple as that, and they don't have an interest to even expand the business to certain level that could generate some amount of effect that will affect on the level of the macro economy. Those things are not existing. So when you are having small scale businesses dominating your economy, you are likely to have that situation whereby every capital you're expecting or every effect of those businesses to have effect on your macro economy not existing. Now let's go back again on the issue of the small scale businesses, which I am using the context that they are not productive. Now most of them, as we also see, are being employed by government. Most of the small businesses, with our statistics so far we have done, they are being employed by government. Only few are there operating independently, not with the perspective of government support. Now ask them, why are they in government institutions? 90% of them are in government institutions with the perspective that, you know, accounting, the controller,
accountant general department.
Perfect. In such a department, at the moment you are working with government, it makes it easily to use that position as a collateral guarantee to get certain funding. So you will have most of them with the mindset that I don't really get concerned of what I'm being paid at the end of the month. But what I'm concerned is that I could use that particular department to become a guarantee to source funding from the bank to run my private business. So at the end of the day, you see many of them in government institutions not with the interest to do whatever it takes for them to make the businesses to be resourceful.
And you're saying that affects output?
That affects output. So that is one of the contributing factors making productivity in government sector very low, because most of them are not there to do why they were being employed there, but they are there to take advantage of that system.
Dr. Senzo, if that's what you're saying, why don't we do an audit and try to see who is working well and who is not working? I mean, just to put it plainly in plain English.
No, because this has
who is resourceful and who is not resourceful.
This also boiled down with the policy right now. Most of the time, we seem to be having a talk.
So we have a problem with policy, management of human resource in the public sector. Is that
is one of the because now it is very difficult to see government institutions firing unperformed staff. But as a private sector, like your company, you know that as an entrepreneur, I come and I employ you there, and I give you a certain tax, and you are not meeting, and you are not performing as a standard. I wouldn't waste my time. We'll just fire you and replace it. But it doesn't happen in the government institutions.
Why?
Why? Because at the end of the day, most of their recruitment they make, even the perspective behind the recruitment has been to support employment base as a point of political campaign they have made, political promises they have made. So you deep down also understand that when you go to most of these government institutions that are already existing, the technocrat will tell you that most of the new graduates are just, that's a compliment. They go there to the office and are being paid at the end of the month, but they don't have a well-defined task to achieve and a target to even perform. Some of them are just even made as a normal errands, but they are being paid as aspect defined with duties. But that wouldn't happen within an entrepreneurial institution owned by a private man.
So let's look at this scenario, Dr. Senzo. So we have a public sector that, let's say, well, we're told has categorized workers in the numbers in the regions of just in excess of 600,000.
Yeah.
And we still don't know whether all of them perform adequately as far as their output is concerned.
Yeah.
But always also the observation is that we don't have the maximum contribution of the informal sector or perhaps the private sector in contributing to revenue.
Yeah.
So then what are we talking about? Do we have a certain structure as a country by which we can measure the output of those who are either working in the formal or informal sectors?
Yes.
Or in the public or private sectors?
Yes, because we have lacked that structures on the basis that our steady and trying to define the resourcefulness of our economy had only been based on financial economics. We have been leaving the labor factors. Anytime we talk about the labor factor, it's a matter of discussion on a public issues, lacking policies that guide it. You cannot run an economy that is well-grounded, independent, developing, without not having a resourceful labor.
How does that affect revenue?
It affects revenue because, one, if all assuming per 100% of the people that we have recruited to work in government institutions are performing 100%, in an assumption that are performing 100% of their expected labor output, I am telling you, there is no way all these government institutions that are operating will end up coming out with a monthly deficit, which government has to secure loans to address that issues. That is one aspect. Two, because you end up by realizing that we are always complaining of a budget deficit, and it is also defined clearly that that budget deficit is going in salary paying. And that is why I'm just letting you, your station is surviving, because the labors here are all being pegged in a position that you become 100% resourceful. Because as an entrepreneur, I have two functions to play. My function is to identify a capital and identify a resourceful labor, and then manage them in a way that I will generate a result. So whereby I have been able to identify a capital, but I'm lacking a resourceful labor, it ends me going to get a deficit in terms of my return. And when this result just appears, you are definitely going to crash your economy. Your institution is likely to collapse.
Is that what we're facing currently?
That is what we are now facing when it comes to the government sector, because they are highly employed laborers. They have employed much of the labor market. But at the end of the day, many of them are not resourceful. And that is why I'm also saying that the attempt to create a policy and create an enabling environment for such people as the employed government to against established businesses is also one of the contributing factors causing where we are finding ourselves now. Because what happened is that I need a capital. As an individual, it's very difficult in Ghana. Now, the small-scale enterprises that are not working with government, that would have had the entrepreneur character to be able to expand their businesses and not having easy access to capital, possible the enabling environment to grow the business. Now, when I'm working with government, I have ability to be able to raise capital per my salary I take from Controller Accounting General. And that makes it easy for me to establish some business.
So you're saying that becomes an incentive?
That becomes an incentive. And on this basis, I'm working with government and I'm also having my small business. Then you know that the interest of running that business will not be a priority, but will just become a complementing effort towards my monthly expenditure of family issues. When you have such a situation, what you then do is that you start having more of small-scale businesses dominating your economy with the perspective that they are entrepreneurs, but they are not, but they are small business owners.
Are they the same people we say in the informal sector?
That is most of the situations we are finding ourselves now.
So how does that contribute to negative generation of revenue, internal revenue, so to speak?
As simple as that, because now he is in the government, he understands the government system. Again, he has his small businesses and know how the system operates.
I'm talking generally about the small businesses.
The small business.
How does their unstructured regulation and operation tend to affect revenue generation?
Perfect. One, the business is no more becoming productive.
It's just subsistence.
It is just a subsistence. So sometimes he doesn't even have the interest to make it registered to become.
You are for real? People are doing pure water businesses and things. You said they are subsistence?
Many people are doing that water businesses. How many of them are their business venture recognized on the database as a register? And have you ever done your survey clearly to also find how many of them are officially contributing their revenue on a yearly basis? How many of them are really having auditors that are going through their works? You will realize that most of those businesses you may be seeing, you will realize that even the owners running that businesses are also working with government institutions, and they have it as part-time business they are doing. So on that basis, they don't have the interest to let that business run to stand in itself. But the one that is running as a private man, I don't have anything I depend on.
So you say we have two-edged sword. One, we have perhaps business owners who could also be partially working in a formal sector, but not contributing as far as the output is concerned,
yeah,
to growth, and also that ultimately affects revenue.
Yeah.
And also because there's no consistent policy to make sure the small enterprises are structured.
Yeah.
They also don't get to the optimum because the structures are not there. They don't make enough to recapitalize and things like that.
So the bigger challenge we have now is we got to get a policy, and we also got to make our training very careful, especially when it comes to entrepreneurs, because most of them are involved in working in government institutions. You know, the attitude of entrepreneur character, ability to enhance themselves with entrepreneur knowledge becomes a bigger challenge for them. They are not really much more interested because they have two sources of funding that complement them. But the one that is running one sole business as a small-scale enterprise will have the will to start that because he doesn't have any other revenue to depend upon. What he have is what he's doing. Such a person is always interested to get a certain knowledge to enhance that business, to make the business progress and become that larger. And in such a position, if we're running that small business, you know that for the business to progress, you got to get your auditors clear. You will get a financial. So such people enter into entrepreneurship class that have an interest to let the business grow and contribute to the macroeconomy. And on this, because if only your business will grow, then you should be prepared to see its connectivity to the macroeconomy. And then you will need that. You will know that you will need certain ingredient, which is auditors and all those things. And therefore, you'll be willing to position the business to be recognized.
Okay. Now, beyond the fact that, well, there could be people who are working in the public sector, and so they are also dually also operating small businesses, and as a result of that, they don't have enough time for the development of those businesses.
Even don't have
the existing
interest.
ones that we have, the small businesses,
Yeah.
their unstructuredness and non-development. How does that affect revenue generation? If they don't have owners that work in the public sector, how, if we have businesses that are small and still don't see growth, how does that influence or affect revenue generation?
Yes, because if the business is not growing, how do I?
Because we can go take income tax, take whatever it is that we take daily or monthly. So what's our problem?
It affects revenue because one point you need to understand is that I need that small business to enlarge. The more I am enlarging my business, the more my contribution continue to increase. Whatever I quote at the end of the year per my annual contribution to the government continue to increase. Whereby I've maintained the same business size. If it is a 2 people type business, and what I contribute to government, possible even per the year, it is decreasing. Meanwhile, per the year, the expenditure of government is increasing. How do you then call yourself? How do you then call yourself in the position that you are helping to grow the economy? What I am now positioning very clear is to let the small businesses that are existing to be able to, the small businesses that are existing to be able to be empowered by government to get that enabling environment that will enable them to also contribute much to the nation macroeconomic environment.
Now, we know that the Ghana Revenue Authority, that's the GRA, is supposed to be responsible directly for making sure that they mop up enough revenue. And, well, we've been having difficulties.
Yeah.
So, for the informal sector, we're told that there are people not under the tax net and things like that. What does it mean, and how do we rope them in?
One, many of them are not in there because they don't think it's interest to them to come because they see more of the revenue collection process as a threat to the success of their business. So our work now to the ground base, which Basiat Ghana has started, is to do much more of the entrepreneur training and letting them to understand that their contribution, even to the government revenue tax, help rather to empower their businesses more. Create that enabling environment because the work of the government is to create enabling environment. And the government cannot function when it doesn't have funds to create that enabling environment. So these are the people to be educated to see the link of their business growth and development as a corresponding correlation to government receiving the tax to assist them getting the enabling environment could be one of the biggest way getting. So now you need to form your group at the base. And one of the example I quoted to you was organization. We have a problem of forming a sustainable organization. One of the difficult aspects.
You mean business unit organization?
Business unit organization. You see, when you form an organization or you are an organizer and you form a system, there is one aspect whereby the system is sustainable, and another aspect that when something happens, the whole system could crash. We are getting to the point whereby we form a sustainable unit from the baseline, whereby these people learn to understand why they need to do certain actions.
So they have equal objectives.
Equal objective.
Okay.
And ready to trust that system of faith. Because the same principle is what we are seeing the church applying. I like using the church because, you see, why would somebody want to walk to the church and prepare to donate that so much? Because they have gotten a certain sort of sustainable faith that let them know that in their contribution of that amount is a grace they may receive from a supernatural God that could cause development to their life. So people are paying tithe and people are paying offering. You know the relative condition of that.
And those very people are not paying taxes.
They are not paying taxes.
Or they may be business owners.
No, because
small business
yes,
owners.
because it has taken years to establish that sustainable faith in that particular doctrine that my contribution in the church institution has a direct effect of blessing to my development.
As we round up our discussions,
yes,
if that perhaps should be the philosophy or the paradigm in which we want to thread, then it means what? We create a certain bond for revenue generation or with the institutions that tend to collect revenue. I'm asking this because the talk has always been from you people who criticize the financial system, that we're not roping in such people. But even in America, if you leave people free to go, they will evade taxes. They would not contribute to the coffers of the nation. It's a normal principles of human life.
Perfect. So that is why I am then instituting to you, we got to do our homework at the base level very well, whereby we begin to form the organized group and letting them to understand how the church system had formed its organizational group. If we have succeeded forming a political system which had people ready to die in allegiance to the system, the same could be done. But it needs education. But you see, it's a difficult task. That is what many politicians, for a shorter period of time, it's very difficult for them to be able to succeed. And because they see it to be a difficult task for a short time, a short-term period, to form a stronger unit-based people from the ground, whereby they can accept that ideology that my contribution to the tax has a correspondent growth to my business. My contribution to government to be able to create an enabling environment has a very strong effect, and possible by government receiving that will also help me to get enabling environment, possible access to the banks and those things. Because now when the bank is trying to grant you certain funds, he may look at the taxes you pay based on it from your audited report and those factors. Then you think that many businesses at the base will want to do, because now it makes it easy. But even if I'm paying my tax and I get to the bank and I'm trying to seek funds, it makes it also 100 times difficult unless I'm already working with the government and use accounting control.
So we need a lot more interconnectivity between the various institutions in the society, in the financial system.
On the financial system, connecting with a form of strong group on the base level.
I get you.
And that is what
is that what the developed countries do better than us? Because, for example, somebody operating a business in America is willing to pay taxes because he sees it as his duty. Is that it?
That is one aspect of it.
Okay.
They see it as their duty. And the next aspect is that they see government using their tax to create that enabling environment. Anytime we use the word enabling environment, maybe the definition has not been very clear. That's why I'm saying that if government is receiving taxes, it owes to the government responsibility to make sure that they create that enabling environment. And to create is making sure that the banks are really connected to the system on the base.
Okay.
And that will help us to be able to grow the business.
Well, thank you very much. We have had in the studio Dr. Tweneboa Senzo. He's Executive Director for Bastiat Ghana. They have a website. You can always go there. They're a think tank, and they've done a number of research topics and written many articles as well as many propositions that you need to take a look at. Bastiat is spelled B-A-S-T-I-A-T. And then you just have to add Ghana. And so just the webpage's name is www.bastiatghana.com. org. And if you go there, you get a lot of material to read about as far as the financial system is concerned, and they've done a lot of research on small business units in our country and also in Africa. And thanks for joining me, Dr. Senso. I hope to have you again sometime in the studio. But we need to speak on a number of issues, because we know that, well, they had been at loggerheads with government on a number of issues, and agitating state attorneys. They've declined a directive by the National Labour Commission ordering them to call off their ongoing strike immediately. The president of the Association of State Attorneys, Francisca Tetemensa, said they will not comply with the directive because they are yet to receive an official communication from the NLC that cites reasons for the order. We have her on the line. A very good morning to you. And so, is that all? You don't have an official communication as a result of that? You're not going to call off the strike? Is that it?
Correct. A statement that you made that we have refused to call off the strike.
Okay.
That is not the issue. We have not refused to call off the strike. We are only saying that we don't have any letter in our hands. We have not received any communication from Labour Commission. So we cannot act on a letter we haven't sent.
And that is not a refusal, almost like a refusal, I think. But that's not for discussion.
A refusal is when you have been requested to do something and you refuse to do it. But where is the request? We don't know. You are telling us that there's a letter. We don't know. We haven't received any letter. And we don't know what we have to act upon. There's a procedure for calling off legal strike. We embarked on legal strike. We've written 6 letters to Labour Commission. They didn't respond to any of our letters. And what we have always wanted is that a Labour Commission will give us a forum to air out our grievances, which has not been given to us. So if they are coming out to the media to say that we have refused to comply, that is incorrect. That's incorrect. We have always wanted to be at table and then iron out our differences, which we have not been given that opportunity. If they are ready now to listen to us, they must tell them, the whole Ghana, the whole world, that they are now ready.
Well, you are state attorneys and you are lawyers as well, so it makes a lot of sense that you feel that your rights are being trampled upon. But particularly when we've come to the point where there seems to be a lot more animosity than a forward look into the subject. Don't you think that if you still go onto the table and do a lot more dialogue, it will help than just embarking on a strike action?
Exactly. Thank you for that question. That is exactly what we've been asking for since November 2014. We would never have gone embarked on the strike. The Labour Commission could have even stopped this strike when we gave a notice of intention to embark on legal strike. It was a 7 days, working days notice. And within that 7 days, Labour Commission could have even called us for this mediation or arbitration, whatever. They didn't. They shirked their responsibility of ensuring that we do not even start the strike. And they waited and we started the strike. So we are on course. We are observing the law, the Labour Act. We are observing the Labour Act under Section 159, 1. Subsection 1. So, yes. So they should also follow their own law and their own procedures.
Well, you are fighting for your rights, but to the extent that the places where you work and the cause of action for which you work for could be lagging behind, aren't you concerned just because you're on strike and you have to go back and there's a backlog of work that you still have to undertake? We
are seriously concerned. That is why we petitioned our Attorney General, our boss, over 1 year. Our petition to her is dated 23rd June 2014. We are in July. That is 1 year, 1 month ago that we wrote our first petition, followed by 4 letters. We've written 5 letters to her. Nothing was done. We also written about 6 letters to Labour Commission. Nothing was done. As if they don't even care about anything. So it is our concern for the repercussions of the strike. That is why we took all these measures. And they did not take us seriously. So now we have been pushed to the wall. and we are observing the letter and the spirit of the law, the letter and the spirit of the procedures as spelled out by the Labour Act.
Okay.
The procedure to go about the resolution of grievance. We are observing the letter and the spirit.
Okay.
So they should comply.
All right. Now, just to refresh our memories, and also for our viewers and those who are listening to us or even listening to you on this very phone line, what really are you agitating on or about?
If you listen to the interview we granted yesterday to Joy TV, Wiresat, and then the other media, we actually wanted to sit down at table and settle. After, if you look at Section 160, subsection 2, after embarking on strike for over 7 days, what is left for Labour Commission to do is to ask us to come for compulsory arbitration. And that was what we told the media yesterday. And there's a procedure for going through compulsory arbitration. That procedure is spelled out under Section 164 of the Labour Act. The procedure is that the issues should be settled. The Labour Commission should serve on us and the issues, and then let the parties agree to the issues.
Okay.
And the parties are first respondent, finance minister, second respondent, minister of justice, and we are the petitioner. When the issues are set down and we all agree, then compulsory arbitration begins before a 3-member committee. So you see that the procedure should be followed.
Before we let you go, though, so if you don't receive the letter, you're not going to back down. The status quo continues.
My very good friend, it is just fair. It is just fair that we receive the letter. We know what the letter is asking us to do, and we comply.
What will satisfy you? That should be a content or should be in the letter. What in the letter will satisfy you?
What will satisfy us is that the letter must follow the procedure that I've spelled out.
Okay.
It's not me, it's the law.
Okay.
It's the law. They should just follow the law.
All right. Thank you very much. And we've been speaking to Francisca Techimensa. She is the president of the Association of State Attorneys, and they're really worried about grievances they're having about the emolument and salaries and the conditions of service. So we'll bring you a lot more. But next, Mama View Usomba, you will be speaking on the subject of autism. And we know many of us are very much ignorant on the subject. But what do we do? What is it like? And where do we get a lot more help? So do stay on. We're talking autism next with Mama V. Osu Abwaje.